Howdy, thanks for stopping in. Back in the wood shop today, and you'll probably notice that I got a couple of parts missing. Yeah, you should see the other guy. No, that's not it. Really, I guess I'll just have to give up hockey. No, that's not it either. It's legit. It was a dentist. It's just old guy stuff. Parts wearing out. So I'll try and not spend too much time on camera until I get some replacements, which I don't know how long that's going to take, but we'll see. Anyway, back in the wood shop today.
Let's get down to business.
I'm going to build something that I've been meaning to build for a while now. And that's TV trays, or what we call TV trays, basically serving trays. But we watch TV while we're eating dinner a lot of times. And in the old days, they had TV tables. And I never liked those because they were small and odd height and kind of tippy. And, well, we just prefer a lap tray. And we've got a couple that we use now, but the first one, this one here, doesn't hold a plate. It's not quite wide enough. So that doesn't work out well. This other one is kind of too big and kind of heavy and clunky and doesn't have much of a lip on it to hold anything from sliding off. So I'm going to try and get something a little bit in between these two in the style of the first one here, and a little bit wider so the plates will fit on it okay. And I'm going to try and do this without using any metal fasteners. So let's see how I do. I'm starting with two pieces of 1x6, 16 inches long, that I planed down to 5/8 of an inch thick just to lighten it up a bit. You could use fence pickets if you don't have a planer. I'm just gluing them up to make the bottom piece 11 inches wide by 16 inches long. After the glue dries, it comes out of the clamps. I do a little preliminary sanding at both sides now because it's much easier to do it now than later when I get the sides and ends on it. Next, I'm cutting the ends, and this is a piece of the same thickness, 3 inches wide, and I'm going to match it to the width of 11 inches. The ends are 3 inches wide because I'm going to cut handles into them. After I make the initial cut, I hold it to the piece and then bring it back to trim a hair off just by moving it up to the flat of the blade and then cutting. This basically takes off the amount the carbide blade tip stick out to the side of the blade. It's a good way to sneak up on the exact length you need. Then I'm figuring out the handle opening. I'm doing a lot of pondering here, and initially I'm looking at how long to make the slot. I think I started about 3 inches from the ends and then decided on 3¼ inches from the ends, and that's to the center of the bit for drilling the holes that'll be the ends of the slot. I'm just kind of going by eye to figure out the proportion and how long the slot should be and where I should drill the holes, and also how thick the handle top should be. And I was thinking about a 1 inch wide slot or a 1 inch Forstner bit, but figured that was a little too much, so I cut it down to 7/8 of an inch. And I marked for that dimension and also marked a center line for layout. Then I started thinking about the shape of the ends and whether I wanted it to be a compound curve or just one curve from the top down to the height of the sides, which are 2 inches tall. So I'm going down from 3 inches down to 2. I decided on one gentle curve, and I figured it'd be a good idea to lay it out on a piece of paper. So once I got that lined up, I used my French curve and just moved it to what fit and looked okay. Then marked it on one side. With that done, the best way to get the other side perfectly symmetrical is to take the paper, fold it in half, and then cut it out so both sides cut out at once and identical. Then unfold it, lay it back on there to mark for the cuts. I measured up from the bottom an inch and 11/16 to the center of the bit. After I got all the layout done, then it was on to the drill press to cut the ends of the slot for the handles. I set it up so it would drill in just so far as the very tip of the bit would break through. Then I could flip it over and drill from the other side, and that way it eliminates the tear out on the back side. Then I used the same template to connect and mark the upper edges of the holes so it matched the top. I then looked at whether I should make the bottom cut straight across or curve the bottom as well. You could go either way on this one, but I chose to make it the same curve again. Then it was time for the old jigsaw. These things sometimes get some hate because the blade can deflect and not be very accurate, but it's probably one of the most versatile saws you can own. I would recommend a jigsaw be one of the first tools to buy for beginners just starting out. Even the cheaper ones like this one will do the job, and if you've watched my other woodworking videos, you'll know that I've used this thing for many of the projects. It's a great tool for making inside cuts like this. Then I used a file to refine and smooth out the transitions from the saw cut to the drill cut. If you had an oscillating spindle sander, that would work great for this. I don't have one of those yet, but it's on my wish list. So after I got that done, I used that one as a template to mark the other one, and then immediately realized I forgot to cut the top curve on the first one. Duh.
You idiot!
So back to the jigsaw. With that done, now I can finish marking the other one to cut it out. I used a dust mask here for this operation. Even with the windows and doors open and a fan blowing out, a router makes a ton of dust. I'm using a 1/4-inch roundover bit with a bearing and doing the inside of the handle slot and the top edges of the handles. A little hand sanding cleans up any fuzzies left over. You can just finger it like I'm doing here for the curved ends, or you could also wrap the sandpaper around a dowel, and that works well also. After that, we're ready for some glue up. I pick which sides I want facing out on the ends, and I'm going to just glue this up with no mechanical fasteners for now. I'm using Titebond 3 for this. Not that it's going to be outdoors, but it might be subject to moisture from spills and cleaning, so probably a good idea. I'll be reinforcing these joints later, but for now the glue will do the job. I make sure everything is flush and even, then tighten the clamps. Double check everything after tightening to make sure nothing moved. Good to go. Then I use the old straw trick, cut at a 45 to get the glue out of the corners. That works really well, so keep some plastic straws in your wood shop. So after that comes out of the clamps, it's time for the sides to go on. And this will be the same method, just gluing and clamping for now. I got all the glue applied, carefully lined up together, and started tightening clamps. Then realized I forgot to round over the top edges of the sides to match the ends. So I took them back out and quickly rounded them over, then brought them back and reapplied some glue and clamped them up. After drying, it comes out of the clamps and it looks like a tray. When I did the roundovers, I stopped short on one side at each end so it would better match with the end pieces. So I'm just blending them together some with a file. I also did that with the random orbit sander and also broke all the sharp edges and corners a bit. Now I'm going to reinforce all of these glue joints, and I made this little jig or drill guide to just make sure I get all the holes evenly spaced apart and equidistant from the edges. I just line it up and clamp it on. Then I'm using a 1/4 inch bit to drill holes to insert dowels. I'm drilling deep enough to get through the outer board and go into the adjoining board a 1/4 inch or so, and I have tape on there as a depth guide. I had some 1/4 inch dowel stock and I just cut it down to short pieces with my trim saw, a little longer than needed, so I make sure I get them bottomed in the holes well. Then I just add some glue to the holes, add a little to the dowels, and drive them in. I added 2 to each corner that connect the sides and the ends, and then 2 halfway down the sides and 1 of the ends that go into the bottom. So every glue joint is reinforced with dowels. I then trim them off flush, and I'm just using a trim saw, which is not a flush cut saw. So I'm using a little bit of blue tape here to protect the piece from the saw edge digging in. You can also use a playing card for this. Then some sanding to take them down the rest of the way. Turns out pretty well, I think. Then it's time for some finish. I thought about staining, but decided to just keep it natural, and I'm using tung oil again here. One reason is that I like its water-resistant qualities, and it's also food safe. Not that we'll be using them to eat off of directly, but if I knock a shrimp or something off my plate, I'm not going to let that go to waste. Anyway, I'll probably make up a paste of mineral oil and beeswax to apply over this to give it more durability and also be food safe, but I don't have any right now, so this is a good start. I made 2 of these, and here's the first one with a coat of tung oil on it. I didn't miter the corners, and I know some people don't like end grain showing, but I don't mind it, and I kind of like it. Tell me what you think. Does that look bad? The second one I made the same way as the first with the pine bottom, but I used cedar for the sides and ends for a different look. Here's a few extra pictures of it so you can see some detail. These are pretty simple to build, and there are many different styles and ways to build them, so you can pretty much customize them to your use and taste. And if you were making these to sell, you could make a wide variety and have lots for your customers to choose from. Here are a few examples I found. Well, I hope this inspires you a little to build some. Thanks for watching as always, and thanks for subscribing. I'm glad to have you along for the ride. See you next time.